Alright, so you may be wondering why I'm still investing this close to the next phase when you'd think everything would be expensive, but it's simply because I think abyss crystals are still being undervalued. Now, why is that? Well, I have two main theories as to why abyss crystals are always undervalued. One is because there's a lot of gear that gets disenchanted at the end of the phase. You know, we're literally on the doorstep of the next phase. Not a lot of people still need gear from Alduar, and a lot of the gear in Alduar is going straight to DE. There's also Naxxramas that people are only running for Dying Curses or Grim Tools or new alts. So if you're not on a new alt, then everything goes to disenchant. So there's a lot of supply, and there's still a lot of abyss crystals coming into the market. Second reason is because abyss crystals don't appreciate in price until after people need their new enchants. If people haven't already got their abyss crystals when they were cheap weeks ago, what makes you think that at the start of the phase, on the launch day of a phase, they would go to the auction house before they even have any new gear to enchant and buy abyss crystals? I think that a lot of people don't actually buy the mats they need for enchants until they have an upgrade already. And if they're one of the people that do buy in advance, they've already bought their enchanting mats in advance by now. They're not just suddenly now going to the auction house on launch day buying abyss crystals. So I think we're in the sweet spot between two groups where people that already got their enchant mats and they have already prepared, they bought those weeks ago. People that aren't the type to prepare, they just buy things last minute, they don't have any gear yet, so they aren't going to buy on launch day. We've got a 1 to 2 week window here where the price of abyss crystals are probably undervalued compared to what they actually should be, considering in just a few weeks, everybody's going to have upgrades. You know, week 1 even, people are going to have upgrades, so you want to funnel all your gear to your tanks and whatever. So there's going to be a lot of people going into pugs, going into GDKPs, going into non-guild related activities where the enchanting mats aren't covered, and they're going to need enchants week 1. And then there's going to be a lot more people, you know, DPS, rogues, hunters, you know, whatever. The people that don't get prioritized loot, they're not the healers, they're not the tanks, and they're not the demo locks. Or a lot of DPS classes get their loot on the second week, third week of the phase rather than the first week. Because first week, a lot of it is just progression. You know, guilds aren't even clearing all of it yet, and all the loot that they do get is going to their prioritized raiders, so their healers, their tanks, and whatever. So there's a bit of a time gate between after guilds finish progression and start giving out loot to the DPS classes and whatever that might not get their enchants covered by the guild bank. Also, you may be wondering about speedrun guilds and PTR practice guilds and whatever. All the hardcore guilds that have done Trial of the Crusader 100 times already on 4 different characters and they're going to clear it week 1. Well, my theory about that is that those type of guilds that put in all the prep work, they've already got a guild bank stocked up full of abyss crystals, so they've got their raiders enchants covered. We're focusing on the market of people that go to GKPs, go to pugs, go to guilds that might cover the enchants for the tanks but not the DPS, or they might not cover your enchants unless it's your abyss piece for the phase or whatnot. So those people all still need to get abyss crystals, but what do they also have in common is that they probably won't be getting their upgrades until 1 or 2 or 3 weeks into the phase. So we still have a window here to buy these abyss crystals, and then in 2 to 3 weeks I'm going to sell them, and they should have appreciated in price because people are starting to get their enchants, starting to get their gear, or rather starting to need their enchants because they've got their gear. And the people lower on the totem pole are getting their gear in their guilds, or people in GDKP pugs, people in regular pugs. They've finished progression with that group that hasn't practiced together. They don't have much cohesion or whatever, so took them a couple weeks to start getting loot. They're going to go to the auction house and buy abyss crystals. So now we're going to look at the JP Morgan price graph of abyss crystals prior to phase 2 coming out. So end of phase 1, they were quite expensive. Compared to phase 1 going into phase 2, there's an entire extra raid tier just pumping out abyss crystal. But if we look at the day phase 2 came out, prices were 89 gold, but let's see what happens the exact next day. So very next day, they go from 80-ish gold to down to 79 gold, and the trend continues. It's just down and down and down. 71 gold here until they eventually go back up in the weeks following the release of phase 2, and that's because week 1 nobody's got any upgrades yet. And we can also see this quantity graph over here, a huge spike of people that were hoarding abyss crystals posted on week 1. And very next week, look at this. It goes back to not as low as phase 1, but it's closer to phase 1 than it is this peak here at the launch of phase 2. And here is where, in this area, coincides with over here, it goes back up to 87 gold, 97 gold. All the way up here, this one day, it was really expensive, but it was just one spike. But it does go back up to around 100 gold, 96 gold area over here. So that's why I think we're in a really sweet spot right now, because we're in between the people that already stocked up and the people that haven't bought yet, but we're also going to probably see week 1, or day 1 rather, a spike of people that were hoarding abyss crystals post, similar to how they did here, when they really should be waiting and holding until the 2nd or 3rd week of the phase when the price will recover. So this is why I'm buying abyss crystals. Let me know if you're doing any other cool phase 3 investments in the comments, or if you're going to do this abyss crystal investment with me, and let me know how it pans out in a couple days, or in a couple weeks rather, when we sell. Hope you make all the gold in the world. Leave a like, subscribe, and stay tuned. I'll see you in phase 3.